Smithy!
What, Cotton?
I've slain a young Garuga, and I've heard tales of old world hunters with these hammers.
Oh, a hammer? Yeah, I can make that.
These hammers made from just a young Garuga's head.
What?
The head!
That's barbaric!
But it's fantastic!
I won't do that!
But it's how we've done it before!
It goes against my code as a smithy!
Wait, what about the Silver Rathlos hammer?
Well, fuck Silver Rathlos. Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, with the new event coming to bear, I thought there no better time than to talk about the equipment, and not just equipment, but the special extra fun equipment that gets added every once in a while when Capcom decides to go fuck it with the whole realism thing and just put things in from their deepest dreams or nightmares.
They can build or do anything, immediate.
And so today we'll be talking about the equipment in your hands, your weapons, and more specifically the particularly silly weapons. Now that we have all this extra equipment in Iceborne, which added silly weapons are the silliest, and how good actually are they to use as silly weapons? Because it's always nice to hit something in the face with a fish and have it mean something. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be bringing you through my top 10 silly weapons in Iceborne, with some slight bonus points being added for how actually useful the weapon is or is not. Without further ado, let's begin with
Number 10.
Smiling and waving with one hand, but the other hand holding the severed head of a tiger.
TIGREX Heavy Bowgun.
This weapon is extremely cool, if a little bit, gruesome. It is essentially just the top half of a TIGREX's head mounted upon the barrel of a bowgun. It's extremely frightening, but also pretty damn cool if you can set that aside for a moment. As far as usability goes, it's pretty garbage. There isn't a whole lot for us to use it by itself as a weapon, but if you really want to strike fear into the heart of every orange pseudo-wyvern that you fight, then layering this bad boy on top of your heavy bowgun will almost certainly do the job.
Number 9. Stygian ZINOGRE Hunting Horn.
And if this was a list purely about quality of design, then this one would be a fair bit higher on the list. But as far as things go, I do consider it a little bit silly, which is why I am allowing it on the list. But it is far more just plain cool than purely silly, to be honest, which is a main part of why it winds up down this low here. That and the fact that it isn't particularly useful unless you have somehow coordinated a group of hunters who are all element matching the monster, so your buffs are actually useful.
Number 8. PICKAXE Longsword.
And this one is simple but awesome. It's a giant pickaxe, exactly what it says on the tin, and it delivers exactly as promised. A curved, double-pointed metallic piece on the end of a wooden stick. It's sort of weird to use it as a longsword, but it looks funny. It is particularly fitting to use against a monster like, I don't know, Uragon. But unfortunately, there is little reason to use a weapon like this against a monster like him, or just any monster in general, as it is just statistically quite lacking. But once again, thankfully, this is why layered weapons now exist.
Number 7. GAJALAKA Firecracker GUNLANCE.
If you want to give in to your wild side, then this is exactly the best way to do it. A beautiful homage to the craftsmanship of the native felines of the region, the smithy has simply outdone himself in replicating it in larger fashion, as well as retrofitting it to work from the ground up as a gun lance. This thing is super fun, but unfortunately, like most of the weapons so far on this list, it isn't that great statistically. But don't worry, we are almost at the weapons that are more usable as like actual weapons.
Number 6. STORMSLINGER Light Bowgun.
This is the only weapon on this entire list that is not here for a visual reason. It isn't even available on all platforms of the game, but goddamn it is it silly to see an unwitting hunter pick up this light bowgun for the first time and electrocute themselves nearly to death. This weapon has its uses. It is extremely powerful for Thunder Element, and when put in the right set and in the right hands, you can negate a lot of its negatives and actually turn them into positives with things like heroics. But that doesn't stop the fact that it is inherently incredibly silly to pick up a weapon and use it when it could accidentally put you to a single health. It's just a silly weapon mechanically.
Number 5.
Hey, baby, do those legs go all the way up?
Why, yes, they do.
Ah!
Juicy Well Done Hammer.
A personal favorite of mine, the juicy well done hammer will always hold a special place in my heart. I can't deny that I love the idea of beating up monsters with the cooked leg of another monster, almost like waving it in their face, rubbing it in there, and I feel like in a realistic fight against a wild animal, this would actually make the creature lunge more for your weapon than for you yourself. So at least as far as my imagination is concerned, it has actual tactical benefits too. Unfortunately, with this bad boy capped out at blue sharpness and not having enough raw attack to push past that deficiency, it just isn't all that good from an actual usability stats standpoint.
Number 4.
Who are you again?
Dr. John Beecher, Vice Chairman of the NSA.
Yeah, well, listen, Dr. Dipshit. You've obviously never been ice fishing before.
No, I haven't.
Well, it's fucking exhilarating.
Frozen SPEARTUNA Greatsword.
The greatest example of human ingenuity in the game, ladies and gentlemen, the permanently frozen fish. Almost incomparable when it comes to fish-based weaponry. Almost. This is one of the funnier weapons in the game, and for multiple reasons too. Not only is it a fish, it is a permanently frozen fish. Not only is it a permanently frozen fish, but you hold it from the sword-shaped nose. The thing that you use for the handle of the sword is arguably the swordiest part of the fish that you're using as a sword. It's just ridiculous in every way possible, including the fact that it actually was sort of the king of something for just a moment. Even if it was just a moment. It is the highest ice element greatsword, and therefore, while people were initially adjusting to Elatrion, especially for the special assignment, where he always starts in fire mode, this greatsword was actually legitimately the best option for this specific fight, which is incredible to me, to be honest with you, given how silly it is.
Number 3.
This drink, I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another!
Mugs of Ale.
These ones are beautiful, if for no other reason than the particle effects, the foam flying everywhere, and the weapons themselves actually have active physics on the foam part of the weapons as well, almost looking like some sort of jelly-like substance that is just fantastic foaming out of the top of the mugs, not to mention that it is just straight up 6 of these mugs of ale, not just 2 mugs for dual blades, it's dual blades, they could have gone with 1 for each hand, no, 2 sets of 3, because why the hell not? Statistically speaking, this weapon is definitely not necessarily good, not necessarily shaking up the dual blades meta, given that they are a mostly elementally focused weapon category, but this weapon does have excellent raw attack, and the both interesting and silly combination of both paralysis and sleep status on it. Practically the ultimate support weapon as far as debuffing the monster goes, just trying to cause as much usable and positive CC as possible. They're actually quite wonderful for their very unique niche.
Number 2.
Hey! Hey! Are you gonna pay for that?
Talk to the hand.
SHARA ISHVALDA Hand Hammer.
And again, this one almost didn't make it because I had to argue with myself a little bit on whether or not it actually counts as a silly weapon, but yeah, it does. You're literally slapping the monsters with an open palm with a fire coming out of the back. It is silly as hell, but it is also just so gorgeous. Like, as an aesthetic, this thing is what the young ones refer to as a big mood. I think I'm using that right. But this thing is just a lifestyle to me. I will never forget it. And now that layered weapons exist, it is applied to a number of the hammers that I use in my current day sets. Though that said, for the first few months of Iceborne, this one was actually one of the best 1 or 2 hammers in the game, with the only real competitor being Acidic Glavenus, which isn't as good for hammer because it doesn't get custom mods, which made this weapon extra viable compared to the average SHARA weapon in the game, and made me far happier to use it as a result.
Number 1.
Fishy, 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 fishy. Fishy, fishy, fishy. Fishy, fishy, fishy.
They don't like that.
WHETFISH Saber Dual Blades.
And these are honestly just the height of silliness at this point in Iceborne as far as I'm concerned. Like, they're fish. okay? They're just fish. You're holding 2 giant fish and using them as weapons, but it's amazing because they're flopping around everywhere even when you're not swinging them, as if trying to imply that they are still alive. These aren't sharpened weapons shaped like fish. No, these are living, slimy, blunt, bouncy fish that would realistically bounce off of any monster they hit, doing exactly 0 damage. And here they are as a viable weapon in the game. Yeah, you heard me right, viable, because these dual blades get a fair chunk of bonus credit for how good they actually are, because they are actually the best water dual blades in the entire game outside of the Kiara ones. So if you don't have those and you want a water element dual blade set, they are really cool. Not to mention the inbuilt small amount of purple sharpness, but also innate protective polish skill on the weapon because they're WHETFISH. It makes for a weapon that is not only ridiculously silly, but also pretty decently strong, and in a very unique way at that, considering the inbuilt skill as well. This truly is Iceborne's king of the silly weapon. And that just about covers it for today, everyone. I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been my list of the top 10 silly weapons in Monster Hunter World Iceborne, with some bonus credit added on to the actual quality of the statistical side of the weapon too, because beating a monster with a fish is one thing, but beating a monster with a fish and knowing it is the actual meta option, that's just something special. Do you agree with my choices on this list? What silly weapons from old games would you like to see make a return? Like if you'd like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes. When they're watching us play video games, when we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or important news about the kingdom Animalia. Rage, Continent, Hollow, we're all here, talking about the things you want to hear, so if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros, there's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.